Our planet hides secrets that challenge everything we think we know about ancient history. Scattered across the globe are colossal structures, sunken cities, and impossible alignments that defy simple explanation. These are not just ruins, they are geographic anomalies, silent puzzles left behind by civilizations long gone. By the end of this journey, you will have explored 25 of the world's most baffling ancient mysteries. How did a culture create art only visible from the sky? And why did another society collapse under the weight of its own colossal statues? We will dive into a mix of hard science, enduring legend, and cutting-edge archaeology to uncover the truth. What forgotten story from the ancient world are you most curious to finally understand? High on the arid plains of southern Peru, a desert canvas stretches for hundreds of square miles. Here, the ancient Nazca people transformed the earth itself, scraping away the dark, sun-baked pebbles to reveal the pale sand beneath. They did not create small drawings, but immense geoglyphs on a scale that is almost incomprehensible from the ground. A colossal hummingbird, its wingspan a graceful arc, lies next to a perfectly rendered spider, each leg meticulously defined. There is a monkey with an extravagantly curled tail, and a whale swimming through the dust, all etched into the landscape with unwavering precision. The sheer size of these figures is the first part of the mystery, for they were made to be seen from a vantage point that the Nazca culture seemingly never possessed: the sky. Why would a people create such magnificent art that they themselves could never properly behold? This is the central, haunting question of the Nazca lines. One prevailing theory suggests they were a massive astronomical calendar, with the lines pointing to celestial bodies on the horizon, marking solstices and seasonal changes vital for agriculture. Another idea paints a more spiritual picture, proposing these were sacred pathways, walked during rituals to communicate with deities who would see the symbols from their heavenly realm. Some even speculate about connections to water sources, with the animal figures representing spiritual guardians of underground aquifers in the parched desert. Yet none of these theories fully explains the need for such monumental scale and artistic complexity, details utterly lost on any observer standing at ground level. The true purpose of the lines remains one of history's most captivating puzzles, a testament to a culture that invested immense effort into a message whose meaning has been erased by time. We are left with a gallery without a curator, a masterpiece whose instructions for viewing have been lost. What knowledge or belief was so powerful that it compelled an entire society to decorate a desert for the eyes of the gods, or perhaps for someone or something else entirely? Far from the Nazca Desert, in the vast emptiness of the Pacific Ocean, lies one of the most isolated islands on Earth. This is Rapa Nui, known to the world as Easter Island, a place of profound mystery defined by its silent stone sentinels. Nearly 900 massive moai statues stand guard here, their stern, elongated faces gazing inward from the coast, their backs perpetually turned to the sea. Carved from compressed volcanic ash, these figures are not just heads, but full-body statues that bury their torsos deep within the earth, some standing as tall as a 3-story building and weighing more than 80 tons. The creation of these giants is a staggering engineering puzzle. The Rapa Nui people, with what we would consider primitive stone tools, quarried these colossal blocks from the volcanic rock of Rano Raraku. They then had to move them for miles across rugged terrain and finally erect them with astonishing precision on massive stone platforms called ahu. How did they accomplish this without wheels, without large animals to provide draft power, and on an island with limited resources? One of the most compelling and controversial theories suggests the statues were not dragged but walked. Researchers propose that teams of people used ropes to rock the moai from side to side, inching the giant forward in a controlled, upright shuffle. This method, while plausible, is incredibly dangerous. A single misstep could shatter a statue that represented a generation of work. The more traditional theory involves a massive workforce using log rollers, laying down a track of felled trees and painstakingly pulling the moai over them. Yet this idea is deeply entangled with the island's tragic fate. The very act of moving these statues may have led to the society's collapse. To transport the moai on log rollers would have required an enormous amount of timber, potentially leading to complete deforestation. With the trees gone, the soil eroded, crops failed, and the islanders could no longer build fishing boats. What began as a grand, spiritual endeavor to honor ancestral chiefs may have spiraled into an ecological and societal catastrophe. The silent moai, then, are more than just monuments. They are a haunting lesson in the consequences of unchecked ambition, standing as solemn reminders of a civilization that may have literally worked itself into the ground. Yet the drive to align with the cosmos was not unique to the Pacific. Across the world, another ancient culture achieved a feat of precision so astounding it defies the technology of its time. The Great Pyramid of Giza is not merely a tomb, it is a monument to geometric perfection. While its massive scale is legendary, its most subtle mystery lies in its near-flawless orientation to the four cardinal directions. Its north-south axis is aligned with an accuracy of within just 0.05 degrees of true north. To put that into perspective, that is a margin of error so small it is less than the width of a single human hair held at arm's length. How could a civilization from 4,500 years ago, without compasses, GPS, or modern optics, achieve such an exact alignment with the Earth's poles? The ancient Egyptians must have possessed a profound and sophisticated understanding of astronomy and land surveying. One leading theory suggests they used a method called the circumpolar stars. By observing two stars that rotate around the celestial pole, like Kochab and Mizar in the bowl of the Little Dipper, they could bisect the angle between them to find a true north-south line. Another possibility is that they used a simple yet ingenious tool called a merkit, a forked stick with a plumb line, to track the shadows cast by the sun over the course of a day, creating a perfect east-west line from which they could derive north and south. The sheer amount of labor and repetition required to scale this measurement up to the foundation of the largest stone structure on Earth is almost unimaginable. A single error of a fraction of a degree during the initial layout would have been magnified catastrophically over the pyramid's 750-foot base, yet the error is virtually non-existent. This was not a lucky guess, it was the result of a meticulously refined system of knowledge, a science that has left no detailed manuals behind. The Great Pyramid stands as a silent, three-dimensional testament to a forgotten genius, its perfect corners a permanent question mark aimed directly at the stars. But what happens when a legend is not just a story, but a memory preserved in stone beneath the waves? Off the western coast of India, in the shimmering waters of the Gulf of Combat, lies a mystery that bridges myth and reality, the lost city of Dwarka. Ancient Sanskrit texts, the Mahabharata and the Puranas, speak of a magnificent fortified city built by the god King Krishna. This was no ordinary place. It was described as a city of gold with opulent palaces, broad avenues, and thousands of gates, a celestial capital that prospered until the day Krishna departed the earth. According to the epic, the sea then rose and consumed the entire city, pulling Dwarka and all its splendors into the depths. For centuries, this was considered a beautiful, symbolic myth. Then, archaeologists began to look underwater. Their discoveries have sparked a debate that challenges our very timeline of history. Submerged stone structures have been found, including massive block walls, pillars, and geometric formations that clearly show human handiwork. Divers have recovered artifacts from the site, such as pottery, beads, and stone tools, with some materials undergoing dating that suggests they are thousands of years old. The scale of the underwater ruins is immense, pointing to a once thriving urban settlement that now lies silent beneath the sediment and sea. This is where the mystery truly deepens. Mainstream historians and archaeologists urge caution. They point out that the dating of the artifacts and structures is hotly contested, and that the site could represent a much later port city that simply succumbed to rising sea levels, a common occurrence in coastal regions over millennia. They see the evidence as fascinating, but not yet conclusive proof of a city from the mythical era described in the texts. On the other side are those who believe the underwater discoveries are a direct validation of the ancient stories. For them, this is not just an old settlement, it is the legendary Dwarka of Lord Krishna, evidence of a sophisticated, advanced civilization that existed far earlier than accepted history allows. The debate is not just about carbon dating or pottery shards, it is about the nature of human knowledge itself. Are our oldest myths merely fanciful stories, or could they be fragmented histories passed down through generations, waiting for us to develop the technology to find their physical proof? The sunken stones of Dwarka pose a profound question. Are we listening to the whispers of the past, or are we projecting our hopes onto the silent ocean floor? The same impulse to mark the Earth with cosmic meaning appears again, thousands of years later and thousands of miles to the north on the windswept coast of Brittany in France. Here, in the village of Karnak, lies one of the most extensive and baffling prehistoric monuments in the world. Row upon row of ancient standing stones march across the landscape in eerie, silent procession. There are not dozens, but thousands of these weathered granite megaliths, arranged with startling precision into parallel lines that stretch for over 4 kilometers. Walking among these alignments is a disorienting experience, the sheer scale of the site overwhelming the senses, a forest of stone planted by an unseen hand for a purpose we can only guess at. The local legend offers a fantastical explanation, one steeped in the magic of Arthurian myth. It is said that a Roman legion was once marching across this land when they encountered the wizard Merlin. With a single powerful spell, he turned the entire army to stone, freezing the soldiers in their tracks for all eternity. While a captivating story, the truth behind the Karnak stones is likely even more fascinating. Scientists and archaeologists have proposed a range of theories, each attempting to crack this ancient code. One compelling idea suggests the stones functioned as a massive astronomical observatory. The complex alignments may have been used to track the movements of the moon, with specific stones marking its extreme rising and setting points over its long, 18.6-year cycle. This knowledge would have been invaluable for a Neolithic society, helping them mark time and predict seasonal changes. Another, more controversial, hypothesis posits that the stones were an elaborate seismic early warning system. According to this theory, the stones were placed on sensitive geological fault lines, and their precise positioning could have amplified tiny tremors, making the ground vibrations detectable to a trained shaman or priest who could then warn the community of an impending earthquake. Then there are the simpler, more human explanations that these were territorial markers for different tribes, or a sacred pathway for ceremonial processions, guiding people toward a great religious complex that has long since vanished. With no written records from the people who erected them, the Karnak stones remain a monumental riddle. They stand as a testament to a society with a sophisticated understanding of their world, whether they were mapping the heavens, listening to the whispers of the earth, or enacting rituals we can no longer comprehend. Beneath the clear, blue waters off the coast of Japan's Yonaguni Island lies a formation that blurs the line between natural wonder and human creation. Discovered by a diver in the 1980s, the Yonaguni Monument is a massive, monolithic structure rising from the seafloor, its sheer cliffs and startlingly perfect right angles appearing anything but random. The site is a complex of terraced platforms, wide steps, and what look like ceremonial plazas, all carved from solid sandstone. One of the most compelling features is a pair of tall, prominent pillars that seem strategically placed alongside a large, flat rock that some interpret as a ceremonial altar. Perhaps the most controversial element is a section of the rock face that bears a striking resemblance to a human face, complete with what looks like two eyes, a mouth, and a carved headdress. For those who believe it is man-made, this is not just a rock, it is a sunken city, a remnant of a lost Pacific civilization like the legendary Mu or Lemuria, submerged by rising seas at the end of the last ice age. They argue that the precise geometry, the parallel lines, and the accumulation of what appear to be tool marks point to intelligent design on a grand scale. Yet there is a powerful and equally compelling counter-argument. Geologists point to the region's intense seismic activity. Yonaguni sits in an area prone to powerful earthquakes, and the sandstone in this region naturally fractures along straight planes and right angles due to its unique mineral composition. The relentless force of tidal currents, they explain, could have eroded the stone over millennia, carving out the stair-like terraces and platforms without any human intervention. The so-called face could simply be a classic example of pareidolia, the human brain's tendency to see familiar patterns like faces in random shapes. So we are left with a profound and beautiful mystery. Are we looking at the ruins of a forgotten culture, a place where people once walked and worshipped before the ocean claimed it? Or are we witnessing the incredible power of nature, a masterpiece of geological chance that merely mimics the hallmarks of human architecture? The Yonaguni monument does not offer easy answers, forcing us to question our own perceptions of what is possible, and reminding us that the Earth itself is the most talented sculptor of all. High on the windswept Bolivian Altiplano, the ruins of Tiwanaku guard another masterpiece of ancient precision. The Gate of the Sun stands alone, a solitary and massive archway carved from a single colossal block of andesite stone. This is not a crude monument but an intricately sculpted puzzle, its surface covered from top to bottom with beautifully precise carvings that have resisted a simple translation for centuries. At the center of the archway looms a dominant figure, often identified as the creator god Viracocha. He is depicted in a rigid frontal pose, holding staffs that may represent thunder or authority, while tears stream from his eyes, a poignant detail that has sparked endless debate. Is he a weeping god mourning a lost age, or are these lines representing rays of light, symbolizing his divine power? Flanking this central deity are 3 rows of 48 winged figures, 32 with human faces and 16 with condor heads, all seemingly running toward Viracocha in a perpetual celestial procession. This precise numbering is the key to one of the gate's most compelling mysteries. Some researchers, like Arthur Posnansky, propose that this intricate iconography is not merely decorative but a functioning calendar system. They argue that the entire design, with its specific counts of figures and symbols, encodes a complex luni-solar calendar, tracking not only the solar year but also the cycles of the Moon and Venus. If true, the gate was not just a spiritual portal but a sophisticated timekeeping device frozen in stone, a computer for an age without silicon. Yet this theory is hotly contested. Other scholars see it as a purely religious narrative, a depiction of a creation myth or a hierarchy of deities. The true purpose of the site only deepens the enigma. The gate now stands isolated, but it was clearly part of a much larger and grander architectural complex. Was it the entrance to a sacred temple, a celestial observatory, or a stage for powerful rituals under the watchful eyes of the gods? Adding another layer to the mystery is the stone itself. Andesite is an incredibly hard stone, difficult to cut and shape even with modern power tools. The Tiwanaku culture, which flourished over 1,000 years ago, achieved a level of craftsmanship that seems to defy their technological capabilities. The surfaces of the gate and other stones at the site are cut with razor-sharp precision, featuring perfect right angles, smooth planes, and intricate mortise holes that suggest a knowledge of advanced stoneworking, possibly involving tools and techniques that are completely lost to us. The Gate of the Sun, therefore, is a mystery on multiple levels. It is a linguistic puzzle, an astronomical hypothesis, and an engineering marvel all at once. It stands as a silent stone question mark, challenging us to understand not just the meaning of its carvings, but the very capabilities of the civilization that dared to carve it. Deep underground in China's Zhejiang province, a secret world of staggering scale lay hidden for centuries, forgotten by history and submerged in murky water. It was only in 1992, when a curious local farmer decided to pump out a small, seemingly insignificant pond, that the truth was revealed. As the water receded, it exposed not a natural grotto, but the entrance to an immense hand-carved cavern. This was the first of the Longyu Caves, a complex of at least 24 subterranean halls discovered so far. Stepping inside is like entering another realm. The scale is breathtaking, with some caverns large enough to hold multiple airplanes, supported by massive, evenly spaced pillars that were carved directly from the native rock. But it is the walls that truly captivate. Every single surface, from the soaring ceilings to the immense pillars and the sheer rock faces, is covered in a uniform, chiseled pattern of parallel lines. This is not random tool work. It is a consistent, decorative marking applied with painstaking effort to every inch of the interior, a deliberate aesthetic choice that must have consumed an unimaginable amount of time. The sheer volume of rock removed to create this underground empire is the first staggering piece of the puzzle. Archaeologists estimate that the builders excavated and carted away over 36,000 cubic meters of stone. To put that number in perspective, that is enough rubble to fill more than 14 Olympic-sized swimming pools. This was not a small, clandestine operation. It was a colossal industrial project requiring the coordinated labor of thousands of workers over many generations. And yet, this Herculean effort has left not a single trace in the historical record. No scroll, no imperial edict, no local folk tale, no poet's verse mentions the construction of these colossal caves. It is as if the very memory of their creation was systematically erased. This complete historical silence is as profound a mystery as the caves themselves. Who ordered such a monumental undertaking, and for what possible purpose? One theory suggests they were intended as elaborate tombs for a forgotten emperor or a royal dynasty, a subterranean palace meant to mirror the grandeur of the world above. Yet no artifacts, no burial goods, not a single piece of evidence of human habitation has ever been found within them. Another, more pragmatic idea is that they were a massive mining operation, perhaps for a valuable mineral like argillaceous sandstone. But this fails to explain the immense and seemingly unnecessary labor invested in the decorative markings covering every wall. Why would miners bother to artistically finish every surface of a quarry? The precision of the chiseling and the grand, unified design suggest a purpose far beyond mere utility. They point to a lost chapter of Chinese history, a project of such immense importance and secrecy that its very existence was never recorded. The Longyu Caves stand as a silent, underground monument to a mystery that is not just about who built them, but why they were so completely forgotten. Scattered across the Decoding Delta of Costa Rica, hidden amongst the tropical foliage and riverbanks, lie hundreds of near-perfect stone spheres. These are not rough, rounded boulders, but meticulously carved monoliths, some as small as a tennis ball, others towering over 2 meters tall and weighing more than 16 tons. Their surfaces are unnaturally smooth, their geometry so precise that they challenge our understanding of the pre-Columbian cultures that crafted them. The sheer perfection of their spherical shape is the first layer of the puzzle. How did a society without metal tools, precision instruments, or the wheel achieve such flawless form in hard granite and gabbro? The prevailing theory suggests a process of meticulous pecking and grinding. Artisans likely identified a suitable boulder, then used other, harder stones to repeatedly strike its surface, fracturing small pieces away over countless hours. They may have then used sand as an abrasive to smooth and perfect the curve, a painstaking labor that could have spanned generations for a single large sphere. But the question of how is only rivaled by the question of why. Why would a community devote such immense effort to creating these enigmatic objects? Some archaeologists propose they were astronomical markers, arranged in specific patterns to align with celestial events like solstices or the paths of important stars, turning the landscape into a giant cosmic map. Others see them as powerful status symbols, with the size and number of spheres owned by a chieftain directly reflecting his wealth and influence, placed prominently near dwellings as a display of power. There are even more speculative ideas, including fantastical suggestions from pseudo-archaeology that they were navigational aids or landing markers for mythical ancient airships. The tragic twist in this mystery is that the original context for these spheres has been almost entirely lost. When early settlers and agricultural companies moved into the region in the 1930s, they saw the spheres as curiosities or obstacles. Many were dynamited by treasure hunters believing they contained gold. Dozens more were simply rolled away from their original positions using bulldozers to be used as decorative lawn ornaments in government buildings and wealthy estates. This well-meaning but destructive relocation erased the sphere's original arrangements forever. We are left with the beautiful, polished objects, but we have lost the sentence they formed in the landscape. Were they a silent language of the stars, a declaration of social order, or something we have not yet conceived? The stone spheres of Costa Rica remain perfect, silent, and utterly displaced from their meaning. The silent perfection of those stone spheres stands in stark contrast to a city that was erased by chaos. In the winter of 373 BC, the powerful Greek city-state of Helike was, in a single terrifying night, utterly destroyed. Classical writers like Strabo and Pausanias recorded the event with awe and horror. They described how, just before the catastrophe, for 5 days, all the animals of the city, mice, snakes, and weasels fled Helike, heading for higher ground as if heeding a warning the people could not hear. Then a massive earthquake struck, the very ground beneath the city liquefied, and as the buildings crumbled, a colossal wave from the Corinthian Gulf rushed in, not just flooding the city, but dragging every structure, every temple, and every citizen into the churning sea. By morning, Helike was gone, vanished beneath the waters, with only the tips of the tallest bronze statues visible to mark where a great city had once stood. For centuries, the story of Helike was considered a dramatic, perhaps exaggerated, tale from the ancient world. It became a literal ghost town, its location a subject of scholarly debate, a lost city that had slipped from history into myth. The modern search for Helike began in earnest in the late 19th century, but it was not until the 1980s that archaeologists, combining the ancient texts with geological surveys, began to look not in the sea but underneath the coastal plain. They realized that over 2 millennia, silt from nearby rivers had completely filled in the lagoon, burying the ruins not underwater but under many feet of solid earth. Their persistence paid off. Excavations finally uncovered the remains of a classical Greek city, its collapsed walls and shattered pottery preserved in a layer of clay and marine shells, clear evidence of a sudden catastrophic submergence. The rediscovery of Helike was a monumental achievement, proving an ancient historical account with hard, physical evidence, but it also ignited a fascinating and enduring speculation. The philosopher Plato wrote his allegory of Atlantis, a powerful island kingdom that sank into the sea in a single day and night around 360 BC, just a few years after Helike's dramatic demise. The parallels are impossible to ignore. A sophisticated, powerful civilization punished by the gods and consumed by the sea in a cataclysmic event. Could the tragic, very real fate of Helike have been the seed for one of the world's most enduring legends? It is entirely plausible that the story of Helike's destruction traveled across the Mediterranean, reaching Plato in Athens, who then wove it into his philosophical narrative about hubris and the fall of civilizations. The sunken city of Helike, therefore, exists in two realms. It is a confirmed archaeological site, a sobering reminder of nature's power, and it is a ghost that may have given birth to a phantom, a real tragedy that inspired the greatest lost city myth of all time. The American Southwest holds its own gallery of giants hidden in plain sight. Carved into the sun-scorched desert floor of California near the town of Blythe are enormous figures known as the Blythe intaglios. These are not small scratches, but colossal geoglyphs depicting humans, animals, and geometric shapes, some stretching over 170 feet long. From the ground, they appear as little more than disordered scrapes and trenches in the gravel, but from the air, their true forms snap into focus with stunning clarity. A massive human figure with outstretched arms stands beside a coiled serpent and a four-legged animal, often interpreted as a mountain lion or a horse. Their immense scale presents the same fundamental riddle as the Nazca lines: why create art you cannot see? The creators are believed to be ancestral Native American cultures, likely the Mojave or Quechan peoples, whose history in this region stretches back thousands of years. For these communities, the Colorado River was a lifeblood, and the surrounding desert a spiritually charged landscape. The figures are thought to be ceremonial, deeply woven into the creation myths and identity of the people. One prevailing theory suggests they served as sacred pathways for rituals. Dancers might have walked the outlines of these giant forms during ceremonies, physically tracing the shape of a powerful ancestral being or a creator god, thereby embodying the spirit and making the intangible manifest on the earth. Another idea connects the figures directly to the cosmos, proposing that they are representations of constellations or specific celestial heroes from tribal lore, mapping the heavens onto the land. The human figure with its arms raised could mirror a star pattern, while the serpent might represent a specific constellation important to their cosmology. There is also a compelling theory that the intaglios marked territory or commemorated great leaders. Their gigantic size meant to demonstrate the power and reach of a particular clan or to honor a legendary chief, ensuring their legacy was literally inscribed into the land itself. Unlike the Nazca lines, the Blythe intaglios were not entirely lost to local knowledge, but their full scale and significance were only widely recognized with the advent of aviation. This brings us back to that haunting question of perspective. Were these designs intended for the eyes of the gods and spirits who resided in the sky above? The true meaning is kept alive in the oral traditions of the Mojave and Quechan, for whom these lines are not mere anomalies, but a permanent part of their living heritage, a reminder that the desert is not an empty space, but a canvas of profound and ancient stories. From the intricate lines of the desert to the coast of a vanished city, our search for lost worlds now takes us to the heart of the Sahara. In the desolate expanse of Mauritania lies a formation so vast its true form is only visible from orbit. This is the Richat structure, a colossal bullseye of concentric rings etched into the desert floor, spanning over 30 miles in diameter. For decades, astronauts have used it as a landmark, this perfect circle of rock and sand they call the Eye of the Sahara. Geologists explain it as the stunning result of a symmetrical dome of rock that was uplifted from the earth and then slowly, over millions of years, eroded away layer by layer, revealing the striking rings we see today. It is a natural masterpiece, a textbook example of geological forces. Yet, its sheer perfection has sparked a theory that challenges this scientific explanation, proposing that we are not looking at a natural wonder, but the ghost of a legendary civilization. Proponents of this idea point directly to the writings of Plato. In his dialogues, he describes Atlantis as a city built on a circular plan, with concentric rings of land and water, a great capital situated on a plain near the coast and protected by mountains to the north. The Richat structure, with its perfect rings, its location on the edge of a vast plain, and its proximity to mountainous regions, seems to match this description with uncanny precision. The dimensions of the Richat's central island also align remarkably well with the stadium measurements Plato provides. For those who support this theory, the evidence is not just compelling, it is overwhelming, suggesting that the story of Atlantis was not about an island in the Atlantic, but a powerful empire in the Sahara, its circular capital now weathered to stone. However, the geological community presents a powerful and evidence-based counterargument. They point to the immense age of the structure. The rocks that form the Richat are hundreds of millions of years old, and the erosion that carved it began long before the first humans walked the earth. The timeline is simply impossible. Plato's Atlantis was described as flourishing around 9,000 years before his own time, a mere blink in the geological history of the Richat. Furthermore, no archaeological evidence has been found to support the existence of a massive, advanced city at the site. While there are scattered Stone Age artifacts, there are no ruins of temples, no foundations of grand buildings, no submerged harbors, or the vast deposits of artifacts one would expect from a metropolis capable of conquering the ancient world. The absence of this physical proof is, for mainstream science, the most definitive answer, so we are left with a beautiful collision of myth and reality. Is the Richat structure a breathtaking coincidence of nature, its form so perfect that it naturally echoes one of our oldest legends? Or is it a testament to the power of story, a reminder that a vivid description can find a home in the landscape, inviting us to see a lost world in the worn-down bones of the earth? The Eye of the Sahara keeps its secret, watching from the desert, challenging us to decide what we believe. Centuries before the first stones were raised at Stonehenge, a different kind of celestial clock was being constructed in the heart of Europe. In a quiet field near the town of Gossik in Germany, a Neolithic people built a simple yet profound structure, a perfect circular enclosure made of wooden palisades and earthen banks. This is the Gossik Circle, one of the oldest known solar observatories on the planet, dating back nearly 7,000 years. Its design was elegantly purposeful. The circle was not a continuous wall, but featured a series of gates, and these gates were not placed randomly. They were aligned with breathtaking precision to mark the sunrise and sunset on the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year. On that pivotal morning, an observer standing at the center of the circle would have seen the sun rise directly through the southeastern gate, its weak, low rays piercing the entrance. Throughout the day, the sun would travel its lowest arc across the sky, and then, as it set, it would align perfectly with the southwestern gate, framing the dying light in a wooden frame. This was not a coincidence. It was a sophisticated, calibrated instrument for tracking the solar year, a massive, open-air calendar built by early farming communities whose entire survival depended on knowing the turning of the seasons. They needed to understand when to plant, when to harvest, and when to prepare for the long, dark winter. The Gossik Circle provided that critical knowledge, transforming the abstract movements of the heavens into a tangible, predictable event witnessed from the center of their sacred space. But this site of ancient science holds a darker secret. Excavations within the circle uncovered human remains, and the context of these bones suggests something more than a simple burial. The evidence points towards the possibility of ritual human sacrifice. This introduces a haunting duality to the site. It was not merely an astronomical tool, it was also a place of profound and perhaps terrifying spiritual power. The same people who so carefully measured the sun's journey may have believed that such a pivotal celestial event required the ultimate offering to ensure the sun's return and the rebirth of the world. The Gossik Circle, therefore, stands as a complex symbol of a pivotal moment in human history. It represents humanity's first great leap into empirical science, the drive to observe, measure, and predict the natural world. Yet it is also a stark reminder that this emerging rationality was still deeply entwined with a world of potent ritual and belief, where the cosmos demanded not just observation but a blood sacrifice. Rising from the mangrove swamps and shallow tidal waters of Micronesia is a city that seems to defy the very laws of physics and logic. Nan Madol, a sprawling complex of about 100 artificial islands, is a labyrinth of stone built directly atop a coral reef. Imagine a network of canals and waterways separating imposing structures, a prehistoric Venice engineered with stones so massive their transport remains an unsolved puzzle. The engineering itself is staggering. The city is constructed from colossal basalt logs, each one a naturally formed prismatic column weighing many tons. These stones were quarried on the other side of the island of Pohnpei, then somehow transported across treacherous waters and through dense jungle to the reef site. The labor involved in moving millions of tons of this stone without pulleys or wheels to build walls rising up to 25 feet high is almost unthinkable. How did a society with no metal tools accomplish this? The local oral traditions offer an explanation that seems to step right out of myth. They speak of two brother sorcerers, Olasipa and Olasopa, who arrived from a distant land and used their magical powers to levitate the massive basalt columns through the air, commanding them to fly to the construction site. This legend of magical levitation is a powerful cultural memory, a way to explain a feat that appeared so impossible it could only have been the work of the supernatural. For modern engineers, the challenge is to find a practical method that matches the scale of the legend. One plausible theory involves a massive flotilla of bamboo rafts, using the buoyancy of the water to support the immense weight of the stones for the seaward journey. Another suggests the builders used a system of ropes and rollers, perhaps even creating a temporary causeway through the mangrove forests to drag the stones into position. Yet, even these practical solutions demand a level of social organization and manpower that is breathtaking. A society capable of marshalling a workforce for generations to complete a single visionary project. This raises a deeper question than just how they built it, but why? Why commit such immense resources to constructing a ceremonial and political capital in such a challenging, waterlogged environment? Nan Madol was the seat of the Sodalor dynasty, a place of immense power and, according to legend, of terrible oppression. The very isolation of the city, accessible only by boat, would have made it easy to control the population and protect the ruling elite. The city's design, with its separate areas for priests, for ceremonies, and for food preparation, speaks of a highly stratified society. The local legends do not remember the Sodalor rulers fondly, often describing them as tyrants whose downfall was brought about by their own cruelty. So the mystery of Nan Madol is twofold, a puzzle of impossible engineering intertwined with a cautionary tale of power. Were the builders aided by a lost technology we simply cannot recognize, a method so efficient it was remembered as magic? Or does the legend of flying stones simply honor the sheer human will and ingenuity it took to raise a city from the sea, stone by back-breaking stone? High on the grassy downs of Oxfordshire, England, a creature of pure white chalk gallops across the landscape, frozen in a timeless, stylized sprint. This is the Uffington White Horse, a geoglyph so ancient its origins are steeped in the mist of prehistory. Cut into the hillside not with shallow scrapes but with deep trenches that were then filled with brilliant, crushed white chalk, the horse stretches for over 100 meters. Its form is unique, a long, sleek body made of a single flowing line, with a beaked head and disjointed legs that seem to convey motion more than anatomical accuracy. This abstract design is the first clue to its profound age. Scientific dating techniques suggest this hill figure is not just old, but astonishingly ancient, likely created during the late Bronze Age, over 3,000 years ago. That means it was already a millennium old when the Romans arrived in Britain. For 3,000 years, local communities have taken on the sacred duty of scouring the chalk, cleaning the trenches to prevent grass from obscuring the figure, a ritual of preservation that has kept this symbol visible across countless generations. But this enduring act of care leads to a persistent and fascinating debate. What exactly are we looking at? Its name identifies it as a horse, a creature of immense importance to the Celtic tribes who may have created it, symbolizing power, mobility, and the divine. Yet its strange, elongated form, its beak-like head, and the fact that it does not resemble any realistic horse has led to a compelling alternative theory. Perhaps this is not a horse at all, but a mythical beast. The local folklore and geography powerfully support this idea. Just below the hill figure is a natural mound with a flat top known as Dragon Hill. Legend claims this is the very spot where England's patron saint, St. George, slew the dragon. The story says that where the dragon's blood spilled, no grass has ever grown again, and indeed, a bare patch of chalk remains visible on the hill's summit to this day. Could the white figure above be a representation of that very dragon, a myth immortalized in chalk long before the Christian saint arrived? The connection is tantalizing. Is this a tribute to a sacred animal, a tribal emblem of a powerful clan, or the portrait of a legendary monster, its form etched into the land as a permanent reminder of a primordial battle between chaos and order? The Uffington White Horse or Dragon offers no written records, only the silent, elegant testimony of its form, a ghost from the age of hill forts and mystery, forever running across the green English hills. Perched on a steep hill overlooking the ancient Inca capital of Cusco, the walls of Sacsayhuaman stand as a monumental feat of stonework that defies logic. These are not simple, stacked blocks, but a colossal, three-tiered zig-zag fortress built from enormous limestone and diorite boulders, some weighing over 100 tons. The sheer size of these stones is staggering, but it is their assembly that truly bewilders the mind. Each block is a unique, irregular polygon, a giant puzzle piece with complex, multifaceted edges that interlock perfectly with its neighbors, all without a single drop of mortar. You cannot slip a piece of paper between these stones, their fit is so exact. The question of how this was achieved remains one of the great engineering enigmas of the ancient world. The Incas themselves claimed the site was built by a race of giants, a myth that speaks to the sheer impossibility of the task. Modern theories offer more practical, yet still incredible, explanations. How did they quarry and transport these behemoths? It is believed they used teams of thousands, levering stones from quarries miles away, then hauling them on earthen ramps using ropes made from leather and plant fibers. The shaping of the stones is the deepest mystery. One hypothesis suggests a meticulous process of trial and error, where a block was repeatedly lowered onto another, the high points marked with a die, and then painstakingly pecked away with harder stone hammers until the perfect fit was achieved. This would have been a labor of unimaginable patience and time. Yet there is another, more controversial theory that hints at a lost technology. Some researchers point to local legends that speak of a special plant, a juice or sap that, when applied to the rock surface, could temporarily soften the stone, allowing artisans to mold it like clay. Could the Inca, or a predecessor culture, have possessed a botanical knowledge so advanced they could literally make stone pliable? While mainstream archaeology finds little evidence for this, the theory persists because it offers an elegant solution to an otherwise baffling problem. How else could they have achieved such seamless, complex joints in such brutally hard stone? The walls of Sacsayhuaman are more than a fortress. They are a testament to a mastery of material and geometry that seems to border on alchemy, a stone symphony composed with a precision we still struggle to fully explain. Hidden among the rolling hills of northern Laos lies a landscape that feels both serene and deeply strange. This is the Plain of Jars, a vast area scattered with thousands of colossal stone vessels, some standing nearly 3 meters tall and weighing many tons. Carved from solid sandstone and granite, these jars are weathered by centuries, many lying on their sides as if placed by a careless giant. The most immediate question is obvious: what were they for? The leading archaeological theory, supported by findings from the 1930s, is that they served as funerary urns. Excavations have uncovered human remains, ash, and burial goods inside and around the jars, suggesting a complex mortuary practice. The bodies may have been placed inside the jars to decompose, with the bones later being cleaned and buried nearby, a ritual that honored the dead and guided their spirits. Yet, local Lao legends tell a completely different story, one that predates archaeology. The oral traditions speak of a mighty race of giants, the Kunchim, who once inhabited this high plateau. According to the myth, these giants crafted the massive jars to brew and store prodigious amounts of rice beer, or Lao Lao, to celebrate a great military victory. In this version, the stone vessels are not symbols of death, but of feasting and communal triumph. This beautiful contradiction lies at the heart of the mystery, forcing us to wonder if we are looking at a solemn cemetery or the site of an ancient colossal party. The truth may never be fully separated from the legend, but the jars themselves are a testament to a sophisticated and organized society capable of quarrying, shaping, and transporting such immense objects. Today, a more immediate and tragic mystery hangs over the site. Why has so little of it been thoroughly excavated? The answer is a sobering relic of a modern conflict. During the secret war of the 1960s and 70s, the region was subjected to intense, indiscriminate bombing. Millions of unexploded bomblets or cluster munitions litter the land, making vast sections of the Plain of Jars inaccessible and incredibly dangerous. This deadly legacy has paradoxically preserved the ancient mystery, halting modern research while adding a layer of poignant modern sorrow to the ancient enigma. The stone jars stand silent, caught between the whispers of giants and the echoes of a much more recent war. The silent, stony mystery of the Plain of Jars gives way to a discovery that shattered our perception of ancient technology. In the first year of the 20th century, sponge divers exploring a Roman-era shipwreck off the coast of the Greek island of Antikythera made a startling find. Amidst the shattered marble statues and corroded wine amphorae, they recovered a lump of heavily encrusted bronze and wood, its true nature completely hidden. It seemed like just another piece of wreckage, but it would soon be recognized as the most technologically complex object to survive from the ancient world. After decades of painstaking cleaning and analysis, including advanced X-ray and CT scanning, the layers of corrosion were slowly peeled back to reveal the truth. This was not a statue or a simple tool. It was a machine. The Antikythera mechanism was an intricate, hand-powered analog computer made of at least 30 interlocking bronze gears, precisely machined and housed in a wooden case no larger than a shoebox. Its dials and pointers, inscribed with thousands of tiny Greek characters, formed a complex user manual for the cosmos. By turning a hand crank on the side, an ancient user could predict the positions of the sun, the moon, and the 5 known planets. It could forecast solar and lunar eclipses, and it even accounted for the moon's irregular orbit, a subtle wobble known today as the first lunar anomaly. This was not merely a calendar, it was a portable, mechanical simulation of the heavens, a clockwork universe built 2,000 years ago. The implications of this device are staggering. It means that the ancient Greeks in the 2nd century before the Common Era possessed a level of mechanical engineering and scientific knowledge that historians once believed did not emerge until the European Renaissance over a millennium later. The precision of its gear teeth, some just a millimeter thick, suggests a long tradition of gear making, a lineage of technological refinement that has been completely lost to history. This single artifact rewrites the narrative of ancient science. It forces us to ask, who was the genius who designed this? For what purpose was it built? Was it a teaching tool for a wealthy philosopher, a navigational aid for a ship's captain, or a rich man's dazzling toy? And most hauntingly, how many other devices like this were created, only to be melted down for their bronze or lost to the decay of time. The Antikythera mechanism stands alone, a silent, rusted ghost in the archaeological record, whispering of a sophistication we are only just beginning to comprehend. The Antikythera mechanism reveals a world of ancient genius, but some stones were simply too massive for gears alone. In the Bekaa Valley of Lebanon, the podium of the Roman Temple of Jupiter at Baalbek presents a problem of pure, staggering weight. Here, resting at the base of the magnificent Roman columns, lies the trilithon, a foundation of 3 colossal limestone blocks. Each one is a behemoth, measuring over 60 feet long and weighing an estimated 800 tons. To put that into perspective, that is the weight of 2 fully loaded jumbo jets for every single stone. The Romans are credited with building the temple, and their engineering prowess is legendary, but the trilithon pushes the limits of even their capabilities. How did they move these titans from the quarry nearly a mile away, and then lift them over 20 feet to slot them into place with such perfect precision? The quarry itself holds an even more profound mystery. There, still partially attached to the bedrock, lies the stone of the pregnant woman. This single block of stone dwarfs the trilithon stones, an almost unimaginable monolith weighing 1,650 tons. It was cut and shaped, but for reasons lost to time, it was never moved. Its very existence deepens the enigma, proving the builders were planning, or at least capable of, projects on an even more superhuman scale. The standard explanation involves an army of laborers, a forest of wooden rollers, and a complex system of ropes, winches, and capstans. This would have been a monumental undertaking, a chaotic symphony of coordination and brute force that could have taken months to move a single block just a few feet. Yet, some researchers look at the precision and the sheer mass and wonder if the Romans inherited both the site and the technology from a much earlier, forgotten civilization. Could a pre-Roman culture have possessed a lost method for softening or even levitating stone, a technique later mythologized and lost? The Romans themselves were meticulous record keepers, but they left no clear blueprint for this specific Herculean task. The stones of Baalbek stand as a silent, physical argument against our modern assumptions, challenging us to explain how human hands, even tens of thousands of them, could literally lay the foundation for the gods. While the world marvels at the intricate figures of Nazca, a different kind of linear mystery unfolds high in the Bolivian Andes. The Sajama lines are a staggering network of paths, not of animals or gods, but of pure, unadorned geometry. Thousands upon thousands of perfectly straight lines are etched into the dry, high-altitude soil, crisscrossing the landscape in an immense web that covers an area nearly 7 times larger than the more famous Nazca Plateau. From the ground, these paths are nearly invisible, mere scratches in the earth. But from the air, their true scale is revealed, a sprawling, organized grid that stretches from the foothills of the sacred Nevado Sajama volcano to the horizon, a man-made constellation on the ground. The sheer number and precision of these lines is breathtaking, creating the largest work of art on the planet, yet its purpose remains beautifully elusive. Unlike Nazca, these are not pictorial representations, they are pathways. The prevailing theory suggests they were ancient ceremonial routes, connecting remote villages with local shrines or huacas and with the holy mountain itself. Imagine a pilgrim walking one of these straight, purposeful lines for miles across the barren Altiplano, each step a physical prayer, the path itself acting as a spiritual guide wire connecting the human world directly to the divine. The very act of walking the line was likely the ritual, a journey of faith made manifest in the landscape. Yet, this practical explanation only deepens the central mystery, the worldview of the culture that created them. What kind of society perceives the world in such a vast, linear grid? For us, a straight line is often the most efficient path between 2 points, a concept of practicality. But for the ancient Aymara people, a straight line may have held a profoundly different meaning. It could have represented a connection not just between places, but between worlds, the physical and the spiritual, the living and the ancestral. Creating a landscape of lines visible only from the vantage point of the mountain gods suggests a cosmology where the earth itself was a map of spiritual forces, and these paths were the designated channels for human interaction with that power. The Sajoma lines challenge us to think beyond our own cultural framework, to understand a people who did not just live on the land, but who inscribed their deepest beliefs directly into it, creating a sacred geography so vast we are only now from the sky beginning to trace its edges. This revolution in human history is carved into the limestone hills of southeastern Turkey. Göbekli Tepe is not merely an ancient site, it is a conceptual bomb that has shattered our understanding of human progress. Dated to around 9600 BC, this complex of stone circles is the oldest known temple in the world, built a staggering 6,000 years before Stonehenge. Its creators were not settled farmers living in villages, but nomadic hunter-gatherers, people we have always pictured as living a hand-to-mouth existence, constantly on the move for survival. Yet, these people accomplished something that seems impossible. They quarried, carved, and erected massive T-shaped pillars, some weighing over 20 tons and standing nearly 20 feet tall. These are not crude monoliths. Each one is a masterpiece of prehistoric art, covered in exquisitely carved reliefs of animals. A menagerie of foxes, scorpions, vultures, and boars swarm across the stone surfaces, their forms rendered with a fluid, confident artistry that speaks of a rich symbolic world. This is the core of the mystery, a profound chicken and egg problem that challenges a foundational story of civilization. The standard narrative has always been clear. First, humans discovered agriculture, which provided a stable food surplus. This surplus allowed for settled village life, which in turn led to specialized roles, social hierarchy, and the spare time and resources needed to build monumental structures like temples. Göbekli Tepe turns this sequence completely on its head. Here, the temple came first. The evidence suggests that bands of hunter-gatherers were drawn to this site from across the region, not to live but to build and to worship. They had to organize labor on a massive scale, to feed the workers, and to coordinate the sophisticated craftsmanship required for the pillars, all without the guaranteed food supply of farming. This implies they possessed a complex social structure and a shared belief system powerful enough to motivate this Herculean effort. So what came first, the god or the grain? Did the human impulse to build a sacred space, to gather for a common spiritual purpose, actually provide the catalyst for settling down? Did the need to feed the builders of Göbekli Tepe eventually push people to experiment with cultivating the wild grasses that grew around the site, inadvertently inventing agriculture? The pillars themselves offer no written answers, only the silent stone testimony of a forgotten revolution. They stand as a permanent question to our linear view of history, proving that the human drive to create meaning, to come together for something greater than mere survival, may be the true foundation of civilization itself. Just as one mystery seems solved by science, another emerges from a place of pure deception. In the late 19th century, Michigan became the unlikely stage for an archaeological scandal that captivated the nation. It began when a farmer named James Scotford, while digging a post hole, unearthed a small clay cup covered in strange symbols. This single find sparked a frenzy, leading to the discovery of thousands of artifacts over the next few decades. These were not ordinary relics. They were tablets, pipes, and boxes intricately carved with what appeared to be ancient writing, depicting figures in biblical dress and scenes that seemed to depict Old Testament stories. The inscriptions were a bizarre mix of characters, borrowing from Egyptian, Greek, and other ancient alphabets. For believers, this was undeniable proof of a radical theory, that ancient peoples from the Middle East, perhaps the lost tribes of Israel or early Christian missionaries, had crossed the ocean and settled in the heart of North America long before Columbus. The idea of pre-Columbian transoceanic contact offered a thrilling rewrite of history, suggesting a deep, forgotten connection between the Old World and the New. The sheer volume of the finds, all from a single region, was presented as overwhelming physical evidence. How could so many artifacts, all telling a cohesive story, be a fake? Yet the scientific community was immediately skeptical. The artifacts seemed to appear only when Scotford and his business partner, Daniel Soper, were present. Professional archaeologists who examined the items noted that the inscriptions were cut with startlingly fresh, sharp edges, unlike genuinely ancient carvings weathered by centuries. The clay tablets were made from local Michigan River clay, and the symbols were a nonsensical pastiche, a jumble of languages that no single ancient culture ever used. The narrative they told was far too conveniently aligned with popular religious beliefs of the time, especially the then-current fascination with the theory of the lost tribes of Israel. The motive for the hoax became clear: profit and fame. Scotford and Soper were not historians, they were showmen who sold these relics to an eager public, creating a lucrative business built on a lie. They even created a fake burial mound, carefully planting artifacts for unsuspecting investors to discover themselves. The most damning evidence came from a scholar who pointed out that the inscriptions often included modern grammatical errors and misspellings of ancient words, a mistake no genuine ancient scribe would ever make. Despite being thoroughly debunked by experts over a century ago, a strange power lingers around the Michigan relics. Why do such myths endure long after the facts have exposed them? They tap into a deep human desire for a more dramatic, interconnected past, a story that feels more meaningful than the slow, complex march of history. The relics represent not just a forgery of objects, but a forgery of a story we wish were true. A testament to the fact that the most compelling mysteries are not always about what was lost, but about what we so desperately want to find. A map drawn in 1513 seems to contain knowledge of a continent humanity would not officially discover for another 300 years. The Piri Reis map, a fragment of a larger world chart created by the Ottoman admiral and cartographer Piri Reis, is celebrated for its startling accuracy in depicting parts of Europe, Africa, and the coast of Brazil. Yet its most explosive mystery lies at its southern edge, a landmass that some researchers passionately argue is the coastline of Antarctica, shown not under its present mile-thick ice sheet, but as it would appear as a bare continent. The detail is uncanny, with bays, mountains, and river systems that seem to align with subglacial surveys of the Queen Maud Land region. For those who support this interpretation, the conclusion is revolutionary. It suggests that a highly advanced seafaring civilization must have existed in the deep past, a culture with the technology to map the world and the knowledge of Antarctica from a time when it was free of ice over 6,000 years ago. This ancient source, they propose, was then copied and passed down through the ages, its fragments eventually finding their way into the hands of a Turkish admiral. It is a narrative that speaks to a forgotten golden age, a world map drawn from the library of Atlantis itself. Mainstream scholarship, however, offers a compelling and far more grounded explanation. Historians point to the map's own annotations, where Piri Reis explicitly states he compiled his work from 20 different source maps, including Greek, Arabic, and most importantly, Portuguese charts. These Portuguese explorers were actively charting the coast of South America at the time, and the controversial landmass on the Piri Reis map aligns remarkably well with the eastern bulge of Brazil. If one simply extends the coastline southward in a speculative manner, a common cartographic practice of the era. What looks like an ice-free Antarctica is far more likely a misprojected and unfinished representation of the southern part of the New World, perhaps even incorporating hearsay about a great southern land from early voyages. The apparent accuracy, when compared to modern subglacial topography, is then a matter of coincidence, a case of our modern eyes seeing a pattern in the speculative lines of a 16th century draftsman. This leaves us with a choice between two very different histories. One is a story of cataclysm and lost wisdom, where a prehistoric civilization achieved feats we can barely comprehend. The other is a story of human ingenuity and error, of Renaissance explorers piecing together a new world from scattered, sometimes contradictory sources. The Piri Reis map does not give up its secrets easily, forcing us to decide whether we are looking at a miraculous relic of a forgotten age, or a brilliant yet ultimately human document of its own time. Another slab of rock, this one in Scotland, holds a different kind of code. The Cochno stone is a massive panel of sandstone, roughly the size of 2 parking spaces, and its entire surface is a dense tapestry of ancient art. Carved during the Bronze Age, over 5,000 years ago, it is covered in more than 90 intricate symbols. There are spirals that seem to swirl inward toward an unseen center, concentric circles that ripple out like waves from a dropped stone, and mysterious cup marks, small hemispherical depressions drilled into the stone, often connected by a network of grooved lines. Walking across this stone would have been like walking across a map of another universe, a cosmology written in stone. The meaning of these symbols has been debated for as long as they have been known. One compelling theory suggests the Cochno stone is a detailed celestial map. The cup marks could represent specific stars or constellations, with the connecting grooves charting their movement across the night sky. The spirals might depict swirling galaxies or the cyclical nature of time itself, a permanent astronomical record for a people deeply connected to the heavens. Another interpretation sees the patterns as representations of cosmic energy, ley lines or portals to other realms, with the stone acting as a spiritual battery or a focal point for rituals. The carvings could also be a territorial marker for a specific tribe, a complex family lineage, or even a primitive form of storytelling, recording myths and legends for future generations. The stone's modern story adds another layer to its mystery. After being excavated and studied in the 1960s, it was deliberately reburied under tons of earth and grass to protect it from modern vandalism and weathering. This act of preservation means this incredible artifact is now hidden from view, a secret kept by the very land it was carved upon. It rests silently beneath our feet, a protected yet inaccessible puzzle. This deliberate concealment makes us wonder what was so important about this specific arrangement of circles and lines. Were these carvings part of a religious ceremony where a shaman would trace the grooves to enter a trance state? Was it a communal gathering place, a sacred slate where knowledge was passed down? The Cochno stone's reburial echoes the silence of its creators, forcing us to acknowledge that some ancient messages are so profound, their true meaning may be forever locked within the stone. Nestled deep within the Altai Mountains of Siberia, a single cave has rewritten the entire story of humanity. Denisova Cave appears as a simple geological formation, a natural shelter carved by time into the limestone cliffs. Yet within its cold, silent chambers, scientists uncovered a fragment so small it could be easily overlooked, a piece of a young girl's finger bone. This tiny relic, however, contained a monumental secret. When researchers sequenced its DNA, they expected to find the genetic blueprint of a Neanderthal, a human relative known to have inhabited the region. Instead, the results revealed something entirely new, a previously unknown branch of the human family tree. This was the Denisovan, a distinct human species that had vanished from the Earth, leaving behind only the faintest physical traces but an indelible mark on our own genes. The discovery was a seismic event in anthropology. It proved that for tens of thousands of years, the ancient world was a far more crowded place than we ever imagined, a mosaic of different human species crossing paths and sharing continents. The genetic evidence tells a story of profound interconnection. Denisovans not only coexisted with Neanderthals and our own Homo sapiens ancestors, but they also interbred with both. Today, people of Melanesian, Aboriginal Australian, and Southeast Asian descent carry significant traces of Denisovan DNA within their own genomes, a living inheritance from these ancient encounters. This genetic legacy is more than just a historical footnote. It provided real, tangible advantages. Certain Denisovan genes are linked to adaptations for high-altitude survival, which is why modern Tibetans can thrive in the thin air of the Himalayas. A species we did not even know existed until recently gave a gift that allows people to live on the roof of the world. The cave itself, in its remote and rugged setting, becomes part of the mystery. Why is the physical evidence so sparse? Were the Denisovans a small, widely dispersed population, leaving only fleeting footprints in the vastness of ancient Asia? Or does their story primarily survive not in their bones, but in ours, etched into the very code of life? Denisova Cave stands as a powerful reminder that the deepest mysteries are not always written in stone, but sometimes hidden in a speck of bone, waiting for the right moment to speak across the millennia. These 25 mysteries form a global tapestry of human curiosity and genius. We have stood beneath the Colossal, weeping God on the gate of the sun, and navigated the sunken canals of a city built by sorcerers. We have traced the perfect lines of a desert calendar seen only from the heavens and held the rusted gears of an ancient computer that mapped the stars. From the silent, judging Moai of Easter Island to the subterranean empire of the Longyu Caves, each anomaly is a question carved in stone, written in water, or etched into the very earth. They speak of cultures that measured the cosmos with nothing but wooden stakes and patient observation, that moved mountains of stone with nothing but rope and human will, and that encoded their deepest beliefs into landscapes meant to last for millennia. This incredible diversity points not to a single lost super-civilization, but to the boundless and independent ingenuity of humanity itself, flourishing in isolated pockets across the globe. Yet, the recurring themes of celestial alignment, catastrophic floods, and impossible engineering also whisper of a possible, deeper connection, a shared human experience of looking at the same stars and facing the same elemental forces, arriving at similar, monumental solutions. These places are more than just ruins, they are permanent invitations to wonder. They challenge our timeline of progress, expand our definition of the possible, and remind us that the past is not a simple story but a deep well of enigmas. So now the question turns to you. Which of these 25 geographic anomalies captured your imagination the most? Was it the sunken stones of Dwarka, bridging myth and history, or the impossible walls of Sacsayhuaman, where stones fit together like liquid? Do you believe the Richat structure is the ghost of Atlantis, or does the forgotten purpose of the Gosic Circle, with its dual role as observatory and sacrificial ground, haunt your thoughts? Share your own theories and favorite mysteries in the comments below, and if this journey into the unknown has left you wanting more, be sure to subscribe for our next exploration into the world's greatest historical puzzles. The past is waiting, and its secrets are far from all revealed.